Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The Last Drop. Commander Sarah Chen stared at the last drops of water in her canteen, watching them catch the light of NK 427's three suns. 2 weeks of walking across this crystalline desert had taught her many things, but today's lesson was the hardest. Even the best prepared explorer could end up stranded. Her emergency beacon lay useless in the sand beside her, its circuitry fried by the same magnetic storm that had brought down her survey ship. The wreckage lay 50 kilometers behind her, and the research base was still another 100 ahead. At least, she thought it was ahead. The shifting magnetic fields made her compass worthless. Sarah lifted her hand to shield her eyes, scanning the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, its surface covered not in sand but in tiny purple-blue crystals that sparkled like a sea of stars. Beautiful, but deadly. The crystals refracted the sunlight, making the already scorching temperature nearly unbearable during peak hours. Her environment suit had stopped working 3 days ago. Without its cooling system, she'd been forced to travel at night and seek shelter during the day. The cave she'd found would protect her from the worst of the heat, but it wouldn't solve her water problem. A sound like wind chimes caught her attention. Sarah froze. In her 2 weeks on NK 427, she'd learned that any unexpected sound usually meant trouble. The crystal rats were the worst, vicious little creatures that ate through equipment and could chew through an environment suit in minutes. But this sound was different. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, a melodic tinkling that made her teeth vibrate. The crystals around her feet began to glow softly, pulsing in rhythm with the sound. "That's new," Sarah muttered, reaching for her sample kit. If she was going to die on this beautiful nightmare of a planet, she might as well contribute something to science first. As she knelt to collect a crystal sample, the ground beneath her shifted. Not the usual settling of crystal formations, but a deliberate movement. Sarah scrambled backward as a section of the surface rose up, crystals flowing like liquid to form a roughly humanoid shape. The being towered over her, its body composed entirely of the same purple-blue crystals that covered the planet's surface. Light played through its transparent form, creating patterns that seemed almost like internal organs. "Holy shit," Sarah breathed, her scientific training warring with her survival instincts. The creature swayed slightly, and that chiming sound grew louder. With a start, Sarah realized it was trying to communicate. Every survival manual, every first contact protocol she'd ever learned said to maintain distance, to be cautious. But something about the way the being moved seemed wrong. Its crystalline form flickered, sections going dark like a faulty hologram. It was injured, she realized. Or sick. The creature extended what might have been an arm, crystals flowing like water, to point at her canteen. The chiming took on a desperate note. Sarah looked at her water supply, barely enough for another day, then back at the being. "You need water?" The chiming changed pitch, becoming almost melodic. The creature's form flickered again, more violently this time. "You're dying," Sarah said softly. It wasn't a question. Everything she'd been taught said to protect her resources at all costs. In a survival situation, every drop of water was precious. But as she watched the crystalline being flicker like a candle in the wind, Sarah made a decision that would change not only her fate but the fate of 2 species. She unscrewed her canteen and held it out. The being's arm flowed forward, touching the water. The moment they made contact, something extraordinary happened. The water didn't splash or spill, instead, it seemed to dance, forming complex patterns in the air, before flowing into the creature's crystalline body. A sensation like static electricity ran up Sarah's arm, and suddenly her mind exploded with colors and sounds she had no words for. She felt the being's gratitude, its fear, its pain. More than that, she felt its memories, its knowledge. She wasn't just giving it water. Somehow, impossibly, they were connecting on a molecular level. The being's form stabilized, the dark patches clearing. The chiming became stronger, more harmonious. And in her mind, Sarah heard words. "Thank you, Starwalker." You have saved more than just one life today. Sarah stared at her empty canteen, then at the crystalline being. I don't suppose you know where I could find more water, she asked, managing a weak smile. The being's response filled her mind with images: vast underground caverns, ancient mechanisms, and most importantly, water. More water than she could imagine, hidden deep beneath the crystal desert. Come, the voice in her mind said. There is much to show you, and time grows short. Your people are not the only ones who have discovered our world. As Sarah followed the crystalline being across the desert, she realized that her mission had just become far more complicated than a simple survey operation. She had stumbled onto something unprecedented, a connection between two species that could change everything. And somewhere above them, beyond the atmosphere of NK-427, the first mining ships were beginning their approach, their crews unaware that the crystals they sought were far more than mere minerals. They were alive. And thanks to a human's compassion, they were ready to fight back. The crystal resonance. Following the crystalline being, whom Sarah now knew as Vree, through winding underground tunnels, was like walking through a living kaleidoscope. The walls pulsed with soft light, responding to their presence. Every step brought new colors rippling through the crystal formations, creating patterns that seemed almost like written language. Your people built all this? Sarah asked, her voice echoing strangely in the crystalline chamber. Through their newfound connection, she felt Vria's response more than heard it. Built implies separation. We grew it. We are it. The crystals you see are extensions of ourselves, like your flesh is an extension of your bones. The concept made Sarah's head spin. Her scientific mind raced with the implications. So the entire planet's surface. All connected. All alive. Vria's form flickered momentarily, reminding Sarah of their urgent mission. But dying now. The sickness spreads through our network, corrupting our resonance. They emerged into a vast chamber that took Sarah's breath away. Hundreds of crystalline beings hung suspended from the ceiling like living stalactites, their forms pulsing weakly with internal light. The chamber itself was a perfect dome, its walls carved with intricate patterns that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. But what caught Sarah's attention was the water. An underground lake spread before them, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the glow of the crystal beings above like a mirror of stars. Our last sanctuary, Vree explained. The water here is different from the surface. It carries our memories, our songs. But it cannot stop the corruption. Sarah approached the lake, her scientific instruments forgotten in her wonder. The water seemed to sing, creating harmonies with the crystal beings above. But underneath the beautiful melody, she could hear discord, like an instrument slowly going out of tune. What caused this, she asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew. The deep diggers came first. Vria's thoughts carried images of massive mining machines. They broke through our outer layers, introduced foreign elements. We tried to adapt, to incorporate them as we have done with other changes over millennia. But these were different. Toxic. Sarah felt sick. Humanity's first mining expeditions to NK-427 had been deemed unsuccessful due to equipment failures. Now she understood, the planet had been defending itself. And now more are coming, she said quietly. Yes. But you are different. Vree moved closer, their crystalline form catching the light from the lake. Your water, your essence, it changed me. Purified the corruption. We have never encountered your kind of life before. Sarah's mind raced. Her basic biology training reminded her that human blood contained all sorts of interesting compounds, antibodies, proteins, enzymes. Could something in her biochemistry actually help these beings? Before she could pursue that thought, a low rumble shook the chamber. Dust and small crystal shards rained down from above. The suspended beings chimed in alarm, their song becoming discordant. They are here, Vria's thoughts carried an edge of panic. The deep diggers have returned. Sarah pulled out her tablet, quickly accessing the emergency frequencies. Through the static and interference, she caught fragments of transmissions, richest crystal deposit ever recorded, begin immediate extraction, no signs of indigenous life. We have to stop them, she said, standing. If they start mining operations here, they will destroy everything, Bree finished. But how can we fight them? We are weakened, dying. Even our strongest defenses failed against their machines. Sarah looked at the lake, then at her own reflection in Vria's crystalline surface. An idea began to form, crazy, probably suicidal, but possibly their only chance. Your people absorb and adapt to new elements, right? That's how you've survived so long on this planet. When Vri confirmed this, she continued, and something in my biology seems to help fight the corruption. What if we could combine them? Not just temporary contact like before, but something bigger? You suggest joining? Vria's form rippled with surprise. It has never been done with non-crystalline life. The resonance alone could destroy you. I'm already dead if we do nothing, Sarah pointed out. Without water, I won't survive long enough for rescue. And your people? She gestured to the weakly pulsing beings above. They don't have much time either. Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. Through their connection, Sarah felt Vria's fear, uncertainty, and then, determination. There is a way, Vria's thoughts came slowly, carefully. Our ancestors left instructions, preparations for a time when we might need to evolve quickly. But it was meant for our kind alone. To attempt it with you. Will it hurt? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice light despite her racing heart. Beyond anything you have ever experienced, Bree answered honestly. Sarah looked up at the dying crystal beings, thought of the mining ships above preparing to unwittingly commit genocide, and made her decision. Well, she said, managing a smile, I always wanted to make first contact history. She stepped toward the lake, its singing water calling to her. Bree moved with her, their crystalline form beginning to glow brighter. Are you certain, Starwalker? Once begun, it cannot be undone. Another explosion, much closer. The chamber shook, and Sarah heard the distinct sound of drilling machines. I'm certain, she said firmly. Let's show them what happens when you mess with both our peoples. As she stepped into the lake, Bree flowing with her, Sarah's last human thought was that her xenobiology professors were going to have a field day with this, assuming she survived to tell them about it. The water rose around them, and the song of the crystals reached a crescendo that shook the very foundations of NK-427. Above, the mining crews noticed their instruments going haywire, but by then it was already too late. The real power of NK-427 was about to wake up, and it had humanity's best qualities to guide it. The awakening. The transformation was like being torn apart and reassembled one molecule at a time. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, stretching across crystalline networks that spanned the entire planet. Every crystal, every formation, every underground chamber became an extension of her awareness. Through it all, Vria's presence anchored her, preventing her mind from fragmenting under the overwhelming flood of sensations. Breathe, Starwalker, Vria's thoughts guided her. Let the resonance flow through you. Do not fight it. The mining machines were getting closer. Sarah could feel their vibrations through the crystal networks, sense the damage they were causing to the living matrix of NK-427. But she could also feel something else, her own DNA interacting with the crystalline structures, creating something entirely new. Above ground, the mining crew of the VSC Harvester was having a very bad day. Their equipment readings made no sense. The crystal deposits they detected were somehow moving, changing composition faster than their instruments could analyze. And now their drilling machines were starting to crystallize, beautiful but alien formations growing across their surfaces like accelerated frost. What the hell is happening down there? Captain Rodriguez demanded, staring at the rapidly changing sensor data. Get me a visual. The drone footage showed a sight that would haunt him for years to come. The desert surface was transforming. Massive crystalline structures erupted from the ground, their colors shifting between deep purple and electric blue. And at their center, suspended in a column of light, was what appeared to be a human figure, but one that was simultaneously crystalline and flesh. In the sanctuary chamber, Sarah opened eyes that now saw far more than visible light. Her body had become a hybrid of organic and crystalline materials, transparent in some places, solidly human in others. Through her expanded consciousness, she could feel every mining operation on the planet's surface. The joining is complete, Vria's thoughts merged seamlessly with hers now. You have survived. More than survived, Sarah spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that made the chamber sing. I understand now. The corruption, the sickness, it wasn't just the mining. Your people were stagnating. You needed something new, something different to catalyze the next stage of evolution. Yes. We have waited eons for a compatible species. Many came before, but none could merge with our resonance. Until you. Sarah flexed her new form, watching crystal formations flow like water in response to her thoughts. Through the planet-wide network, she could feel the other crystal beings strengthening, the corruption being purged by the introduction of her modified human biology. They're panicking up there, she noted, sensing the chaos among the mining crews. We should probably talk to them before someone does something stupid. How do you suggest we proceed? Vri asked, genuine curiosity coloring their thoughts. Sarah smiled, an expression that now created ripples of light across her partially crystalline face. First, we show them exactly what they're dealing with. Then we negotiate, from a position of strength. She reached out through the crystal network, using it to project her voice to every mining site on the planet. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Survey Corps, speaking on behalf of the Crystal Collective of NK-427. Your mining operations are interfering with a sentient species and must cease immediately. This planet is alive, and we are now its guardians. You have 1 hour to halt all operations and prepare for diplomatic contact. After that, she let her consciousness flow through a nearby drilling machine, crystallizing it completely. Well, let's just say your equipment isn't compatible with our ecosystem. The response was immediate. Panic gave way to disbelief, then to cautious attempts at communication. Sarah filtered through the incoming transmissions, selecting the one from the highest-ranking official. This is impossible, Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the crystal network. Commander Chen was reported missing 2 weeks ago. Whatever you are, you can't be her. Sarah manifested a crystalline projection of her hybrid form in the captain's command center, enjoying his startled jump. The universe is full of impossible things, Captain. I've just become one of them. Now, shall we discuss the future of human-crystal relations? I believe both our species could benefit from cooperation rather than exploitation. As she spoke, she felt the strength of the crystal network growing. The dying beings in the sanctuary chamber were recovering, their songs growing stronger. Through their combined consciousness, she could sense similar revivals happening all across the planet. They will not give up easily, Vri cautioned. Their kind measures value in resources extracted, not life preserved. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But humans are also capable of extraordinary adaptation when presented with new possibilities. And we're about to show them possibilities beyond their wildest dreams. She reached out to the crystal network again, this time accessing its deepest archives. The knowledge of eons flowed through her, scientific discoveries, technological innovations, secrets of matter and energy that human science had barely begun to grasp. Captain, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made every crystal on the bridge of his ship resonate, let me show you what NK-427 can offer humanity if we work together. No mining required. As she began to demonstrate just a fraction of what the crystal beings could teach humanity, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction. This was why she had become an explorer, not to conquer or exploit, but to discover and connect. And now, as both human and crystal, she could bridge the gap between two species in ways no one had ever imagined. The transformation wasn't just physical. It was the beginning of something much bigger, a partnership that would change both species forever. And as the crystal songs of NK-427 reached toward the stars, carrying new harmonies born of human innovation and crystal wisdom, Sarah knew she had made the right choice. The real journey was just beginning. Echoes of change. The following weeks transformed NK-427 into the center of the greatest diplomatic and scientific revolution humanity had ever encountered. Sarah, now serving as the living bridge between human and crystal consciousness, found herself at the heart of it all. Through the crystal network, she watched the arrival of the first diplomatic vessels, their hulls gleaming in the light of the triple suns. The mining corporations had fought hard to maintain their claims, but footage of a human officer merged with a crystalline intelligence was impossible to ignore. The United Earth government had stepped in, declaring NK-427 a protected world of extreme scientific importance. "They're still having trouble grasping it," Sarah commented to Vree as they observed another team of scientists setting up their equipment in one of the outer chambers. Her form shifted between solid and crystalline states as she spoke, something that never failed to fascinate the researchers. "Humans seek to understand through division and classification," Vree responded, their thoughts flowing seamlessly through their shared consciousness. "They separate the observer from the observed. It will take time for them to comprehend unity." Sarah watched as one of the scientists attempted to take readings of a crystal formation, not realizing that the crystals were actively studying him in return. The entire planet had become more responsive since the merger, the crystal network enhanced by the introduction of human adaptive capabilities. "Dr. Harrison," she called out, her voice carrying the musical harmonics that had become her signature. "You might want to adjust your scanner's quantum sensitivity. The crystals are trying to communicate with it, but your settings are too narrow." The scientist looked up, still not entirely comfortable with addressing someone who appeared alternately solid and transparent. "Commander Chen, Ambassador, how should I address you now?" Sarah smiled, an expression that sent ripples of light through her crystalline portions. "Sarah is fine. Titles mean less when you're partially merged with a planetary consciousness." She moved closer, her form flowing like liquid crystal, and adjusted his equipment with a thought. The scanner's display suddenly erupted with data, making the scientist gasp. "This is incredible," he breathed, staring at the readings. "The crystal structures aren't just responding to stimuli, they're actively processing and storing information. The computational potential alone is beyond anything humanity has achieved," Sarah finished. "But that's not even the most interesting part." She gestured, and the chamber around them came alive with light, displaying three-dimensional models of molecular structures. "Watch this." Through her connection to the crystal network, Sarah demonstrated how the living crystals could reorganize their atomic structure on command, forming complex machines and then dissolving back into their base components. The scientists in the chamber fell silent, watching in awe. "They begin to understand," Vree observed. "But they still fear." "Of course they do," Sarah responded silently through their link. "We're rewriting everything they thought they knew about life, consciousness, and technology." Fear is a natural response to such fundamental change. A commotion at the chamber entrance drew their attention. A new group had arrived, corporate representatives, flanked by government officials. Sarah recognized Marcus Vale, CEO of the very mining corporation that had nearly destroyed NK-427, among them. "Commander Chen," Vale called out, his practiced corporate smile failing to hide his discomfort at her appearance. "Or whatever you are now. We've come to discuss a proposal." Sarah felt Vria's consciousness tense within their shared network. The crystal beings remembered the damage Vale's company had caused, the corruption that had nearly destroyed them. But Sarah also sensed something else, opportunity. "Mr. Vale," she responded, letting her form solidify enough to appear more traditionally human, a courtesy she knew would make the negotiations easier. "I assume you've finally realized that destroying this world would have cost you far more than you could have gained?" Vale's smile tightened. "We've had to reevaluate our position. Our shareholders are particularly interested in the computational and storage capabilities your friends have demonstrated. The Crystal Collective is not interested in becoming your new computer system," Sarah said firmly, but then softened her tone. "However, we might be interested in teaching you how to grow your own crystal tech, with appropriate safeguards and oversight. The chamber hummed with increased activity as the crystal network processed this exchange. Through their connection, Sarah felt Vria's surprise. "You would share our knowledge with them? After what they tried to do?" "Not all of it," Sarah responded silently. "But enough to guide them toward a better path. Sometimes the best way to prevent exploitation is to show a more profitable alternative." Out loud, she continued, "Imagine, Mr. Vale, technology that grows instead of being manufactured. Computers that think in 3 dimensions and repair themselves. Energy systems that adapt to demand without waste. All of this is possible, but only if we work together as equals." She could see the calculations running behind Vale's eyes, the profit margins dancing in his imagination. But there was something else too, a genuine spark of wonder that reminded her that even the most hardened corporate executive was still human, still capable of seeing beyond the bottom line. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked carefully. Sarah smiled and raised her hand, causing crystal formations to grow from the chamber floor, forming a complex model of intertwined human and crystal technology. "A true partnership. Your companies provide the infrastructure and distribution networks. We provide the knowledge and guidance. Together, we advance both our species." As she spoke, the crystal formations began to pulse with light, displaying possible applications: medical devices that could adapt to individual patients, environmental systems that could purify polluted worlds, communications arrays that could bridge vast distances instantly. "Of course," she added, her voice taking on an edge that made the crystals around them resonate ominously, "any attempt to exploit or weaponize this knowledge will be problematic. The crystal network now extends throughout this sector of space. We would know." The implied threat wasn't subtle, but it wasn't meant to be. Sometimes the best negotiations required both carrot and stick. Vale stared at the display for a long moment, then looked back at Sarah. "You're not just offering technology, are you? You're offering evolution." "Smart man," Sarah said, letting her form flow between states again. "That's exactly what we're offering. The question is, are you ready for it?" As the corporate and government representatives huddled together, discussing the implications of her offer, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction through her connection with Vri. "You believe this will work?" Vri asked. "It has to," Sarah responded. "The alternative is letting fear and greed drive our species apart. This way, we guide humanity towards something better, while your people gain the adaptation and innovation you need." The crystal network hummed with approval, the ancient knowledge of the crystal collective merging with human ingenuity to create something entirely new. The transformation that had begun with a simple act of compassion, sharing water with a dying alien, was about to change the course of 2 civilizations. And somewhere in the vast crystal networks of NK-427, new harmonies were already beginning to play. Harmonies of tomorrow. 5 years after the first contact on NK-427, Sarah stood in the crystalline observation dome of the newly completed Harmony Station, watching ships from a dozen worlds dock at its gleaming spires. Her partially crystalline form reflected the starlight, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the chamber walls. "Would you believe," she said to Vri, whose consciousness was as much a part of her now as her own thoughts, "that all this started because I ran out of water?" "The smallest actions often create the greatest changes," Vri responded, their shared consciousness rippling with amusement. "Though I doubt either of us could have predicted this outcome." Below them, NK-427 had transformed from a harsh desert world into a thriving nexus of human crystal cooperation. The surface blazed with cities that grew rather than being built, crystalline structures adapting and evolving to meet the needs of their inhabitants. Human scientists worked alongside crystal beings in vast research chambers, while traders from across known space came to learn the basics of crystal technology. But the greatest changes weren't visible from orbit. They were in the countless small ways that both species had grown together. A chime announced the arrival of Dr. Elena Martinez, one of the first humans to undergo partial crystal integration after Sarah. Unlike Sarah's emergency merger, newer integrations were carefully controlled, allowing humans to maintain their individual forms while gaining access to the crystal network. The latest results from the Mars Terraform project are in, Elena announced, her partly crystalline hands creating a display in the air between them. The crystal seeds are adapting faster than we projected. At this rate, we'll have a breathable atmosphere in 15 years instead of 50. Sarah studied the data, feeling Vria's consciousness analyze it simultaneously. The crystal collective is learning to work with different planetary conditions, she noted. Each success makes the next attempt easier. And it's not just terraform projects, Elena added excitedly. The medical applications are exceeding all expectations. The cancer treatment protocols using crystal integration have a 97% success rate now. We're seeing similar results with neural regeneration and organ repair. Yet some still resist, Vri observed, their thoughts tinged with concern. Fear of change runs deep in many species. Can you blame them? Sarah responded aloud, including Elena in the conversation. We're fundamentally altering what it means to be human. That's not a small thing. Elena nodded, her own crystalline components catching the starlight. The anti-integration groups are getting louder. They're calling it the end of human purity or some such nonsense. They said the same thing about genetic engineering, cybernetic enhancement, and AI integration, Sarah reminded her. Humanity adapts. It's what we do best. A flash of light from the planet's surface caught their attention. Another crystal city was growing, its spires reaching toward the stars like frozen music. But this one was different, a perfect blend of human architectural principles and crystal organic growth. That's the new academy, Elena explained proudly. First of its kind, a learning center where both species can study together from the beginning. No more separation between human and crystal education. Sarah felt Vria's consciousness pulse with approval. The crystal beings had always valued knowledge, but human curiosity and innovation had shown them new ways to apply it. In return, the crystals had taught humanity about patience, unity, and the interconnectedness of all things. Suddenly, a new harmony rippled through the crystal network, a signal from the deep space exploratory arrays. Sarah accessed it immediately, her consciousness expanding to encompass the data. We found something, she announced, her voice carrying the crystal harmonic that indicated excitement. The deep space crystals have detected signs of another silicon-based consciousness, 3 sectors over. Similar to the crystal collective, but with significant differences. Elena's eyes widened. Another crystal civilization? More like a crystal ecosystem, Sarah clarified, processing the incoming data. Less structured than the collective, but potentially just as sophisticated. And, she paused, sharing a moment of understanding with Vri, they might need our help. Our help? Elena asked, emphasizing the word. Human and crystal together? Exactly. Sarah smiled, her form shifting to reflect her excitement. That's what makes this partnership so powerful. The crystal collective provides the foundation, the connection, the ability to communicate across vast distances. Humanity provides the drive to explore, to help, to push boundaries. We complete each other, Vri added, their thoughts reaching both Sarah and Elena. What one lacks, the other provides. Together, we become more than the sum of our parts. An alert sounded, indicating the arrival of the diplomatic delegation they'd been waiting for. Representatives from Earth's major nations, corporate leaders, and independent colony worlds were gathering to discuss the next phase of human crystal integration. Ready to change the universe again? Sarah asked, her form solidifying into its more human appearance for the benefit of the delegates. Elena laughed, a sound that made the crystals around them chime in harmony. Isn't that what we do every day? As they moved to meet the delegation, Sarah felt the vast consciousness of NK-427 beneath them, the millions of minds both human and crystal working together in ways that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. The fear and suspicion of those early days had given way to something extraordinary, a true symbiosis between species. The crystal network hummed with activity, carrying thoughts and dreams across light years. Human imagination met crystal memory, creating innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. And somewhere out there, another crystal consciousness waited to be discovered, to be understood, to be helped. You know, Sarah said to Vri as they entered the diplomatic chamber, I never did file that survey report about my original mission. Perhaps, Vri responded with characteristic dry humor, you should simply write, found water. Found life. Changed everything. Sarah laughed, the sound creating ripples of light through the crystal chambers of Harmony Station. Around them, the combined symphony of human and crystal civilization played on, its music reaching out to the stars, promising new discoveries, new connections, new possibilities. It wasn't just a story of survival anymore. It had become a story of evolution, of two species reaching beyond their limitations to create something greater than themselves. And as Sarah prepared to address the delegation, she knew that this was just the beginning. The desert that had nearly killed her had given birth to humanity's greatest adventure. And somewhere out there, other deserts waited, other crystals sang, and other possibilities beckoned. The symphony of stars was just beginning.